The worst Beatles song ever. Now and then, in my humble opinion, which is no better and no worse than anyone's opinion, this is possibly the worst Beatles song ever. As we know, the Beatles, the Fab Four, Yoko, Paul, Olivia and Ringo, as well as two of them having amazing musical talent, collectively they have an amazing talent for raiding their archive. With the last of the proper Beatles recordings coming out in, 1970? You'd think that 53 years later it would all be history. But no, the Fab Four, the original Fab Four, started their raid on the archive. Almost immediately they split, and they still haven't stopped. Whether we can regard Yoko and Olivia as actually being fab, well, I'm sure they are lovely people. Now, I'm not saying that the archive isn't worth raiding. It most definitely has been, and I'm thinking particularly of the DVD anthology sets from the 1990s and their corresponding CDs. And I don't mind listening to Giles Martin's reimagining of Revolver. We still have the original. I've commented on the Beatles raiding their archive in a video I made in 2021, link in the description. But this new song, ghastly, just ghastly, almost literally. Now, I'm a Beatles fan. I was a very good age in 1962-63 when they first came onto what we used to call the scene to become a fan. In fact, the first records I ever bought were the albums Please Please Me and With the Beatles. Their third album, A Hard Day's Night, had yet to be released. And I like almost all of their work right up to and including Abbey Road, which was the last album they recorded, although Let It Be was released later, and I like that too. So I feel that my admiration for the Beatles' oeuvre qualifies me to say that now and then is that's a word I'm sure would have been in John's vocabulary. So what's so about it? Come on, it's so dreary, dismal, dull, depressing. It's just slow tempo whining about some failed relationship. Good God, if we all moaned about all of our failed relationships like this, the world would drown in an ocean of sadness and despair. So that's the lyrics. Rubbish. The only good line is... No, there are no good lines. They're just mashups of words from songs anyone could have written. Come on, John, you can do better. Musically, well, it's okay, especially the strings that announce that it's all going to end soon. Now, the production. As we know, the basis of this is a demo recorded on cassette tape. What we're not often told is that John's cassette deck was, although technically a boombox, one of the best available at the time. It's the Sony CF580. And at the time, it would have cost you $400. Maybe John got it free. Adjusted for inflation, that's more than $2,000 now. It does seem that he used the machine's internal mics, which wouldn't be the best, but I'll have more to say in a moment. What we have from public information is that John recorded 4 songs, voice and piano. He recorded more than 4 songs. Yoko decided to let Paul, George and Ringo have 4 to play with. 2 were recreated by the Beatles in 1995 and 1996, Free as a Bird and Real Love. Both extremely dreary, though not as dreary as Now and Then. And apparently not as dreary as the 4th song, which remains unvisited. Now and Then apparently was abandoned at the time because it just didn't sound good enough, and George didn't like it. Maybe just because George didn't like it, but he doesn't get to have a say now. The limitation in the 1990s was that because the voice and piano were recorded together, it wasn't possible to separate the vocal, so all the band could do was add to it. Of course, you can EQ and edit out the piano when John isn't singing, but that's not much, and it accounts, in part, for why both of them sound so crap. Here we are in the 21st century, though, and separation software is pretty good. I use it myself for purposes both genuine and dodgy. But it still isn't perfect. If I separate a track into 4 stems, vocal, percussion, bass and other instruments, none of the individual stems sounds all that good alone. So this accounts for why Now and Then sounds as crap as Free as a Bird and Real Love. No, I don't think it does. Putting on my Deer Stalker hat, I think it goes like this. The bass material is John singing and playing piano. Added to this on multitrack is George's guitar from the 1990s. This is inherently separate from the vocal and piano, so it should be immaculate in quality. The question would be, how good is John's isolated vocal? Well, maybe it will be good. I presume that Giles Martin has access to separation software that isn't available to the common people. That would be the software developed for Peter Jackson's Get Back documentary, and presumably kept under lock and key. You can hear part of John's isolated vocal on YouTube. I've put a link in the description that goes directly to the clip at the right timestamp. I'm not going to include it here because even though my video is a review and therefore fair dealing and fair use, it's too much bother to resolve the likely money-grabbing copyright claim. Don't they have enough money? It's interesting that the clip is in stereo, and of course if John was recording into his boombox through the internal mics, it would be. There's a very slight wandering from side to side. Where the reverb comes from, I don't know. I doubt that his apartment was that reverberant, so I'd have to guess that this is a modern addition. Now, I can't resist being a little nosy here. I'm going to put this isolated vocal into Melodyne so we can have a look at it. We might be able to tell, sacrilege incoming, whether someone has been tempted to auto-tune it. Ooh, every note bang on. With most singers, I mean good singers, including the best of the best, there will be some, I could say inaccuracy, but it's really part of the vocal expression. Pitches sway and bend, but John is very, very accurate here. Make of that what you will, in the comments. Oh, a nice vibrato, by the way, subtle and even, just like how I'd like to be able to do it myself. This is a decent vocal recording. Not the best, but definitely decent. If Now and Then sounds crap, which I think it does, this is not the reason. I could go through the instruments one by one. Oh yes, I'd start with the too much compression on the piano. But it's generally just too much a thick and congested sound. Listen for how Paul's bass is buried, if you can hear it at all in some parts. There's the vocal, check, harmonies, check, piano, guitars, bass, drums, check, 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 check. Well, what's all that other stuff messing everything up? And the strings, really, is this what they do in world-class studios these days? I'll allow that they sound okay at the end. Thank goodness. The end. I think the premise was to make Now and Then sound compatible with Real Love and Free as a Bird, which sound bad for genuine reasons. That's all I can think. But I'll go back to the song. John Lennon is the guy who wrote A Day in the Life, Strawberry Fields Forever, In My Life, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Help, Nowhere Man, Revolution, Come Together Across the Universe, No Region Would, Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, and more and more and more. But Now and Then, the worst Beatles song ever. Really, surely the Beatles have raided the archive for the very last time. I'd love to hear your comments. If you agree with me or disagree, please have your say below. And has there ever been a worse song to reach #1 in the singles chart? See you soon.